Okay, guys, let's talk chickenpox. So, as I've been talking to people about vaccines, I've talked to doctors and people with PhDs and everything. And one thing that really kind of gets across to people about how a vaccine works, but there is a consequence, is the chickenpox vaccine. So, I have, I kind of believe that the chickenpox vaccine does work. You give the chickenpox vaccine, you're not going to get chickenpox, okay? But let's kind of back up a little bit. So, when I was a kid, I got chickenpox, and maybe you've gotten chickenpox, okay? So far, I've asked this question to a lot of people. Did you get chickenpox? The answer is yes. Did you do okay with it? Did you know anyone who suffered a bunch of side effects from it? No. So far, nobody tells me any terrible stories or any even mildly bad stories, okay? Everybody recovers from it. I'm sure there are people that don't, but I would say that that's the exception and not the rule. So, generally, people agree with this. I haven't had anyone who disagrees with me. So, when you get the chickenpox, what happens is that virus lies dormant in your body, okay? And you have the possibility of it coming out later on in life and having what's called shingles, okay? I think a lot of people are hearing about this now, the shingles vaccine or shingles virus. So I now have several friends who are in their 30s and 40s who they are getting shingles. And they're saying, why am I getting shingles? So the answer to this is if you've had the chickenpox, like me, I've had the chickenpox, what's kind of held that chickenpox dormant in your body is if we are exposed to children who have chickenpox, okay? So it's what's called wild boosting. So I got the chickenpox. I was exposed to other individuals that had chickenpox. By being exposed continuously, our body's able to kind of remember and know how to deal with it and know to kind of fight it off, and it keeps shingles away. Well, now that we've started vaccinating, which vaccination seems to work, the instance of chickenpox is going down, but we don't have that wild boosting anymore. So now that we don't have that wild boosting anymore, now that chickenpox is able to come out in the way of shingles. So we're having outbreaks of shingles, okay? There's a lot of speculation about that the pharmaceutical companies knew that this was going to happen ahead of time and was actually pretty betting on it because they wanted to sell a shingles vaccine. But that's hearsay and speculation. I cannot confirm that one way or the other, but it's not unreasonable to think. So what does that mean for our children who have chickenpox? Is this next generation better off? And until recently, it didn't really occur to me of whether or not the children who get the chickenpox vaccine, those same children are not being exposed to chickenpox, so they're not getting wild boosting either. And so I went on the CDC's website about 2 days ago, and according to their data, 10 years after getting the 10 years after getting the chickenpox vaccine, there was a 1 in 5,000 chance of getting shingles, okay? And I've heard multiple times that for the first time in medical history, we're now seeing shingles in children. And it makes sense because now we're infecting our children with chickenpox, but they don't have this wild boosting to kind of keep that away. So now we're creating a younger generation to have shingles outbreak. So in my opinion, we've taken a disease like chickenpox that I think most would agree was relatively harmless, and we've given a vaccine, and as a result, the people like me who've had chickenpox are at a greater risk of getting shingles. And now our children that we're giving the chickenpox vaccine to have a greater chance of getting shingles as teenagers and young adults. So, I've asked this question many times. Are we trading, short-term disease for something long-term and chronic? Because shingles, which some of you may know or may not know, it can cause nerve damage. It's painful on your nerves, and several of my friends who's had it, it's been years and they still are having pain from it. So you got to think, if your child, your teenager gets shingles, they're going to have to live with this pain possibly for the rest of their life, whereas before, when we were getting wild boosting, it might have cropped up in immune compromised, it might have cropped up at old age, or maybe people who aren't kind of being exposed to so many people. The other thing I'd like to discuss is, and a lot of people don't really know about this, and I was able to kind of learn about this a little bit better in my microbiology class, but I've had chickenpox. So if I were to have a baby and breastfeed for a year, I'm able to transfer protection onto my baby, and it's called passive immunity. And so that baby will get protection from chickenpox, all right? But, for instance, my niece, I won't say which one, but my niece, I know, has gotten the chickenpox vaccine. So when she has a baby and she breastfeeds, that baby's going to be unprotected. And so what that means is, if somebody around her, around the baby, has chickenpox, then that baby can get it, and it's more dangerous when an infant gets it, as opposed to what would happen naturally, where normally, I think the average age might have been around 5. I'm not really sure about that. But normally children would get it at an age where there's not an issue. The last thing I want to kind of take away that a lot of people don't know is the vaccine itself is a live virus, and that can actually cause chickenpox. So the vaccine can cause chickenpox in that child, and then that child can actually spread the disease. So that's something that people are not aware of. But anyway, that's my kind of recap of chickenpox. I feel like this is a gateway vaccine that, when you kind of understand this one, it kind of makes you hungry to research more. The next vaccine, if you were going to research, I would say to research the Hep B vaccine that's given to 1-day and 2-day-old babies. Look to see how long they studied it. Did they use an inert placebo? And does it make sense to give it to the whole population? Okay, thanks.